Welcome back, Math 1 students. Today we're going to be doing lesson 7.3 on line segments. Like usual, we're going to start out with just one vocab word. Then we're going to get into how we would write segments, and then we're going to be solving some problems involving segments. So go ahead and get your notes and get started with me. First is the vocab, and the word is going to be line segment. All right, the first vocab word, like I said, is line segment. It's part of a line that consists of two endpoints and all of the points in between them. So what I've drawn right here for you is a segment, and we are just going to go through how we would name that. So a segment looks like this. Notice there are not arrows on the end like there are on a line, and usually we use two letters. So I'm just going to use A and B to start off with. If this is our line segment, what we would need to do to actually say how we would name it is you use the two letters. So we'd use A and B next to each other. Notice they are capitalized. And you just draw a little line segment above them. You could also do it the other direction. So BA with a line above them. I went ahead and drew another line segment. And this time we are going to name this one C, D, E, so those are all the different points on it. And so there's a couple ways we could name this. If we meant the entire line segment, so the whole thing from C all the way to E, we would just name that CE because we want everything from C to E. If we wanted to name that the other way, we could do EC. Doesn't matter which way you go. Now, what if, though, we just wanted to talk about this part right here? So the part in between C and D, we would just label that CD with a line above it, or we could do it the opposite direction, DC with a line above it. And I hope that this is clear to you as well. If we were to label just this little part at the end, it goes from D to E. So we'd say DE with a line above it, or you could say ED with a line above it. So that's just how we're going to be naming segments. So when you see things that have two capital letters with a line above them, you should think that that is a line segment, and you can go ahead and draw that. We're going to get into some examples with solving now. Example 1 wants us to write and solve an equation for the length of each segment. There is some info given to us on the side. We know that JL is 27, KL is 5x plus 2, and JK is 3x plus 1. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to label and organize on my segment what is what. Because if I look at all the givens up here, it looks a little bit confusing to me. So I am just going to go through and organize it a bit better. So if I know that JL is 27, well, JL, that's the entire segment. So I'm going to do a little squiggly bracket and remind myself that the whole thing is 27. Now, there's no units here, so it might be 27 inches, 27 feet, 27 meters. Doesn't really matter for this. We just need to find the length of each individual segment. I then see that KL is 5x plus 2. And KL is going to be this portion. So I am going to label that as 5x plus 2. And the last bit, I see that JK is 3x plus 1. JK is this small portion right here. So I am going to label that as 3x plus 1. Now, what you're going to need to do when you're solving these, you're going to have to kind of think logically about it. So it is a segment. Think of it as like a piece of string or a ruler or something. We know the entire thing is 27, and we know that the purple and the green are other parts of it. So we know that the two small parts make up the whole. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to say that, well, my 3x plus 1 plus the green part, which is 5x plus 2, that must equal the whole thing, which they told us is 27. Again, the purple plus the green have to add up to the total. So what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to be solving my equation. So finding some like terms, I notice I have 3x and a plus 5x. Then there is a plus 1 and a plus 2. 3x plus 5x is 8x. Plus 1 plus 2 is 3. And the 27 comes straight down. going to subtract 3 on both sides. When I do that, I get 8x. Oh, hold on. I get 8x equals 24. And hopefully you can do the spot in your head. 8 times what is 24? If not, you divide by 8 on both sides, and you end up with x equals 3. Now we might think we're done with this. We solved for x, and usually in algebra classes, that's kind of where it ends. But here we don't need to solve for x. What the question is asking us to do, it wants us to find the length of each segment. So I need to now know actually how long that purple segment is and how long the green segment is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the value of x we just found, and I'm going to be plugging that into x for the purple, and then plugging that into x for the green. So I'm just going to divide this up. For the purple, I have 3 times my x value, which is 3, and then plus 1. And solving that, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1, I get 10. So that means that I know that the purple, which was JK, equals 10. And now I need to do the same thing for the green. So for the green, I have 5 times x. And again, we found out that x equals 3 right over here. So I'm doing 5 times 3 plus 2. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 2. 15 plus 2 is 17. So that means KL, the green portion, is 17. And of course, we already know that the red portion is 27 because that was given to us in the problem. So now we know the entire segment length, we know the purple part is 10, and we know the green part is 17. Also, notice 10 plus 17, that does equal our 27. If you end up with numbers that don't make sense, that means there's probably an error somewhere. So make sure you check it. I know this looks pretty crazy right now. Hopefully it made sense as we went through it. Color coding is one of my favorite things to do, as my students know. I recommend if you have colored pencils or markers or highlighters at home that you do the same. Just helps to keep things organized. I'm going to go on to the next example with you guys. Here's example 2. It's the same directions. So write and solve an equation for the length of each segment. Just like before, there are some givens to us up over here. They tell us what certain segment lengths are. Some of them have variables, some do not. What I'd like you to do is to pause this and try to draw it out, so labeling what goes where on the segment on your notes. Okay, if you have labeled it out, it should look like this. RT is the whole segment, so I used my little squiggle bracket thing in yellow for 10x minus 1. ST is the small part, and that is just 5. And then RS is the other portion of the segment, the top part, and that is a 9x minus 3. I'd like you guys to try to set up your equation now, and then we're going to get into solving it. So go ahead and try to write out what the equation would be. Here's the equation you should have. So 10x minus 1, that's the whole thing, equals the two smaller parts put together. So 9x minus 3 plus 5. Now that you've got the equation, please start solving for x. You should have solved and gotten x equals 3. Now remember, usually we're done when we've solved for x, but this question wants us to find the actual lengths of the other segments, so the yellow and the blue on the video. So let's now try to solve for what the yellow and the blue is. When you come back, I'll have the answer for you. Okay, you should have gotten 29 for RT and then 24 for RS. If you noticed when you were solving it, maybe you guys, when you solved RT, you saw that that was 29. So if we know that the entire segment is 29, and we already know that this little piece is 5, well, 29 minus 5 is the 24 we found over here for RS. So maybe you did that as a little shortcut so you didn't have to substitute into both of them. Alternatively, maybe you solved for RS first, so you got the 24, and you knew that the blue was 24, plus the 5 from the red. That means total you must have 29 for the total length. Either of those ways works. That's totally great if you guys are doing that, because that means you're turning on your logic and reasoning in your head and you're actually thinking about what these values we find are. If you did substitution for both of them, that is also totally fine as well. Just remember, we're finding the length of these things, so you always want to try to think logically about them. We're going to do one more example and then you guys will do your book work. Okay, for this next example, they actually don't give us the picture first, so we're gonna have to draw it. So let's read through it together and then we'll draw it. So it says, if B is the midpoint between A and C, and AB is 5x plus 2, and AC is 8x plus 14, what is BC's measurement? First of all, I noticed that none of these have the segment line over them, so I am going to add that in. And then let's kind of break this apart, because there was a lot of words right there, and frankly, it sounds kind of confusing. So it says if B is the midpoint. That's a word that you guys should know. If something is the midpoint, that means it is exactly in the middle. Like if you were to cut it perfectly in half, that would be right in the middle. So if we know that B is the midpoint of A and C, let's kind of get a segment on here and let's start drawing out things. If this will let me move it. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna add in B, and we know, like it said, that B is the midpoint. So I'm gonna try to draw it as close to the center as I can. And then I'm gonna start labeling. So B was in the middle, it said, of A and C. So that's what my line's gonna look like. And then they gave us some information. Now, hopefully you guys are able at this point to figure out if it says AB is 5x plus 2, that would go on the segment AB. And AC is 8x plus 14, that should go on the segment AC. And then we need to actually figure out, the question wants us to know, what is BC's measurement? So what would BC be? So what I'd like you guys to do is to try to solve this on your own, and then when you come back, I'll have it completely solved for you to look at and check your work. Again, if you're not doing this along with me, it's really going to be an issue for you in the long run. You're not going to be able to learn it as well. So please, I really encourage you to pause it here to try to solve it out, and then remember, you can always come back and check. Okay, so go ahead and pause. Okay, hopefully you got this. You might have solved it a bit differently than I did. I noticed that A, B, and B, C, they have to be equal. So that's what I was doing right here, because B is exactly in the middle. So if it cut it in half, that means both sides are the same because they've been cut in half. So what I did when I was solving down here, I knew I had 2 of those purples, right? Then I distributed. You might also have done just 5x plus 2 twice. That's totally fine. It's the same thing. I just wanted to write less. Distributed, got my variables to the same side. Remember, it's always easier to move the smaller variable, which is why I moved the 8x. The last step, I did this in my head. I hope you guys are able to do 2 times something equals 10, which is 5. Almost positive you guys can all do that. And then what I did next was I needed to actually solve for BC, because remember, that's what they were asking for. So I know, again, that BC has an equal measurement to the purple, so that 5x plus 2. So I used that 5x plus 2. I plugged in 5 for x. I solved, and I got 27. Now, what you can do, just to kind of check your work actually, if we know that BC is 27, that means AB is also 27. Well, if I have 2 times 27, that's 54. So let's just make sure that this blue part, when I solve and plug in a 5 for x, I get 54 as my answer. So I have 8 times 5, because again, x is 5, plus 14. 8 times 5 is 40 plus 14, and 40 plus 14 is 54. So if I take twice of what BC was, 27, I get 54. And if I just plug it into the total length, the blue part that they gave us at the beginning, I again get 54, which is a very good sign that we did this correctly. I hope this made sense for you guys. I hope you are doing well. Enjoy today if you can. Maybe watch some movie, and then you guys should be doing the bookwork 7.3. Okay? I hope you guys all have a great week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.